right, welcome back to the How to Relate podcast. I am here with Heather Heide. Hello.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here today.
I'm so glad that you're here today.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this.
Me too. We had a really fun first conversation that I wish I would have hit record on. And that's typically how this goes is I do podcast intro chats and I'm like, this could have just been the podcast. Like
I
this is
know, I know.
and just jump right in.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah. That's when you know you're in a good conversation with good people and it's exciting to be
Heck
around.
yeah. Yes, this is
Mhm.
going to be fun. Mhm.
Yes. Yes. So you own a practice called Uplifted.
Correct.
All right. Share a little bit about your practice, your work, and what Uplifted does.
Yeah, so we opened it'll be 4 years in July. We are a clinic that specializes in betrayal trauma, and we work with couples and individuals that are struggling with kind of intimacy related issues in their relationships. Some people call it like affairs, some people call it sex addiction. There's a lot of different ways to talk about what we do, but ultimately, people come to us when they've been struggling and really want to work on healing from that like disconnect that happens after betrayal. And we work with like women and men and people just to help them like kind of reclaim their inner knowing. And yeah, I never thought I would get into this work. If you would have asked me 15 years ago as I was starting the journey to become a therapist, would you own a practice that specializes in betrayal? I would have laughed at you and said, there's absolutely no way that's not me. You're reading the wrong tea leaves here. That's not me.
So funny.
Uh-huh.
What would you have said 15 years ago?
I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. Like I thought I was just always going to work at a clinic, and I did for the longest time. I didn't even think that owning a business was something that I could be able to do. And I think that's what's really cool about like the parallel process here, because I help other women and other people reclaim their stories and reclaim themselves. And I'm like, oh, I'm like reclaiming this like empowerment as a woman to own a business and run a business that I just never thought would happen.
I think a lot of therapists don't go into the field thinking that they're going to be entrepreneurs, and then they slide into the private practice realm and they slide into, oh, there's so many opportunities in
Uh-huh.
this realm. And it
Yeah.
is kind of like we almost either tripped and fell into it or we
Yeah.
kind of like slid into it without really knowing that this was going to be our journey.
I know. Yeah. So it feels very exciting. We're a small practice in Minnesota. We have therapists that are licensed in both Minnesota and Wisconsin. So we're kind of serving the Midwest. And the thing that like really has helped us stand out is that we're um, a group of us are certified sex addiction therapists. So that's a funny acronym to say CSAT. But that training is really in the systemic picture of how betrayal and infidelity and addictions can kind of impact entire generations and family systems. So it's kind of an intergenerational practice as well, if you think about all of the systems that we work with.
Can you dive more into that?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's really interesting when we get a client that calls us, they are calling because they are in the middle of crisis generally. Like we get a lot of people that are either in the middle of crisis or they've been doing this couples therapy work for so long and it doesn't work. So those are kind of the two avenues. When people are in crisis, we get essentially three clients in that one call because when they call in, they are wanting couples therapy, but most couples don't really have the skills to be able to jump in to do any betrayal repair. Because the one person who did the betraying had all of these secrets and this other, almost like a double life that they had, that they were living in a total different world. And until that person can really like get honest with what's going on, we can't even do couples therapy because we're just like creating chaos, really, because one person has all this information and the other person is like, wait, what happened? What is this? They have so many questions. So what we really do is we put people like on their own individual tracks of therapy. Not to say that they can't do any couples work, but just that that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is for the person who did the betraying. They need to get honest with themselves about what happened. And as soon as we start digging in with them, we find out that this is like generations of secrets of people that have passed down secrets or haven't really known, or there was always something kind of weird about what was happening with their parents or whatever system that In general, and I'm kind of jumping around here, but in general, most people have a sexual secret. Now, it's not the same for everybody, but because we don't learn how to really like talk about intimacy and sexuality in relationships, it becomes this hidden process. And families have not really learned how to talk about it. So we learned, or we have learned through doing all of this work, that so many people have this struggle and this issue, and not betraying, but a secret.
For sure. I always think of the Mean Girls line where the teacher, the sex ed teacher, or the health education teacher is going like, "Do not have sex, you'll get chlamydia and die." And I think the reason why the joke lands is because we all have had little to no
Yes.
communication around sex, around what, and like, because I think about that in terms of societally, we don't talk
Yeah.
about it. Family secrets, no one talks about it.
Yes. Huh?
People, you kind of hear of people who go, I had this aunt who I thought was an aunt, but it was really like, my cousin because they had a child so much younger or whatever it might be that you kind of hear that through the grapevine.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, but people like there is that secretive, we
Yeah.
don't talk about it,
Yes.
like kind of normal, like the normalizing culture in the
Right.
family that
Yes.
starts to get passed down. So then the one
Uh-huh.
I'm imagining, kind of what you're saying, the one who's doing the betraying is holding on to their own secret, and that they've learned that subconsciously in some ways maybe from their past
Mm-hmm.
generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very fascinating. And I was giggling to myself as you were talking because I'm like, I think like all of like the genetic testing, like the 23andMe is like leading to like all of these like hidden family members,
Chaos,
which is
yeah.
like is a story we hear sometimes in our work and in this like doing all of these things. Like you just hear like, oh, I learned about a brother, or I learned about a sister, or I learned about this person through doing this testing. So that's just very fascinating to me as well.
Truly. Yeah, how
Uh-huh.
technology is
Uh-huh.
unleashing Pandora's box for a bunch of
Uh-huh.
families too. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So when in our previous conversation, you had said something that stuck with me, which is that when an affair is found out, it's trauma for both parties. It's trauma for the person who has where the affair has come to light and their foundation has been shaken, and it's trauma for the person where their secrets have been found out. What makes it traumatic for both people?
Yeah, it's two totally different types of trauma. So for the person who experienced like the betrayal, obviously the person who was betrayed, the person who was cheated on, the affair happened, whatever language you want to use. I like betrayal trauma because it really talks about the devastation that takes over. And on top of that, like the reason it's a betrayal for them is that they didn't consent to it. And it completely shakes their world, and they feel so powerless, and they feel dumb, or they feel like they knew all along. There's so many different ways in which that people like start to internalize and they jump into, oh my God, what did I do to cause this? Which we can talk about in a minute because there is nothing they did to cause that. And there's a lot of people that might disagree with me on that one, but I hold pretty firm that like the behavior that like if you didn't do the dishes for a week, that doesn't mean, or if there's no real reason why this thing happened to you. There are other things outside of it that could have happened, but that's not what caused the betrayal. The other person made a decision.
Mhm. If we wouldn't tell someone whose partner is struggling with an alcohol addiction that you cause them to drink. So, and
Correct.
similarly, we wouldn't say that you cause them to cheat.
No, but we do like that, like in a lot of traditional therapy models, and what I have witnessed for women coming in, and I say women, and I don't mean that that is only who's been betrayed, but a lot of times culturally that this can be a thing that people talk about. But a lot of the people come in, they'll say, I spent years doing couples therapy where the therapist was asking me to have sex with my husband more. They were asking me to, um, asking if I was like having fun enough, if it was my depression that was causing this, that there were all of these reasons because so often therapists are trying to balance out a session. Because if you have a person who did the betraying, you are going to be like, what the hell did you do? Why did you do this thing? And what was going on? And figuring all that out. And so inadvertently, what they do is they all of a sudden then go, okay, and then what were you doing? And it's like, oh no, that's the wrong focus. And that is really unhelpful to do that type of work of like balancing out a session by having an understanding of both. It really harms the person who was betrayed. And it then leads the person who did the betraying to say, like, oh, yeah, I was justified in some of my behaviors. Of course I was going to do that. Of course this was going to happen.
Right. That it's not 50-50.
No.
Yeah, no. And I'm wondering, when we think of a power imbalance, that
Hmm.
then that power imbalance does tilt even further into the one who has done the betraying. That,
Correct.
and sometimes I wonder if it's kind of like I wonder a few things, like even if the therapist that's in the room working with a couple like that who might be saying like, well, what did each of you do? Can we all own our parts? And it's 50-50.
Hmm.
If there's almost like a fear around like the other person maybe shutting down or justifying or already kind of being like, okay, well, we want to make sure that they're as comfortable as possible so that they can also talk about this in session without feeling shame. And
Hmm.
like then they dance around the idea that shame just shouldn't exist in the room
Oh,
and in that space when it definitely does. And I know that you have a lot to say about that.
I have so much to say about that. I shame is part of it. Like if like shame is one of my best teachers. Like shame is what teaches me and helps me like stay in alignment with who I am. So if we were to take shame out of the room with this thing that they said that they didn't want to do and try to make it more comfortable for them, they are never going to heal this wound.
Yeah.
And so when you asked earlier, like, what is the trauma for them? There's a reason that they're acting out of the relationship. One of my favorite definitions of understanding addictions, and I have been trained in the addiction model of like the sex addiction model or porn addiction model, but the reason I love this definition is that people act out of their relationship. So acting out is what we call the behavior because they are unable to act in relationship, act in vulnerability, act in intimacy. And so if we just protect the shame, they never heal that wound because there is a wound there. I don't know what it is for everybody. It's different for every person, but there is a trauma shame wound in there somewhere that makes it so difficult to be able to act in relationship. And so that's why therapy does have to be separate for a bit so they can each work on those trauma pieces, if you will, to be able to be regulated enough to do couples therapy.
That the idea of doing the individual pieces is working into that. If shame is a story around oneself, that it's deepening the understanding around that story and how
Yes.
it is blocking intimacy in your relationship.
Correct. So like if like let's say we had that couple in front of us and that shame wound was activating what and however that shows up for them, whether it's like beating themselves up of like, oh, I'm such a terrible person. I know I did all these terrible bad things and you should be mad at me forever. Like that's not actually healing. That's not actually accountability. That's not actually like leaning into the relationship. It is actually stiff, like putting your arm out and saying like, don't come any closer. This is already too much.
Right, right. Terry Real has that like graph that is almost like the graph of like it's like grandiosity, boundarylessness, shame
Yeah.
spirals, and it's like
Uh-huh.
there's the it boundarylessness, like boundaryless and
Yeah.
shame will cause the like I'm now I'm so completely helpless in my own guilt and in my
Yeah.
own story that like you can't even come near me because now your job now is to make me feel better about what I did to you.
Correct. Which
Hmm.
is what we see happen all the time. And that's why I put the brakes on doing that couples work. And because it just isn't effective. I don't want that other person to take care of the shame wound for their partner. That's just not helpful.
No. No, I can't imagine it being helpful in almost any circumstance, and particularly this one.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolute, like in general, like this isn't just about betrayal. In general, it's not great to have people take care of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so all right, so let's say that a couple is coming into you and they just had a betrayal reveal. So
Mhm.
actually, can we go into different types of betrayal? Because I know that
Yeah.
we're using the word betrayal rather than affairs or infidelity. So
Mhm.
what are some different types of betrayal that you might see in your practice?
Yeah, I think what I say, like tell people is like, I don't tell people what is problematic in their relationship or not. They get to decide what is the problem. I don't have an issue with people doing whatever it is that feels consensual in their relationship. So when it goes outside the limits of the consent in the relationship, that is what then is called a betrayal. So that could be um, like use of pornography. It could be an affair. It could be like hiding money and spending money. It could be like other types of addictions. It could be gambling. Like it can be any of those types of addictions. I've worked with a couple where the betrayal was that they were both like bidding for a project, like work related. They were in similar fields, but one partner didn't say that they were part of that whole bidding. And so the other partner won and they found out that way at a meeting. And so the betrayal was a work related thing. And it just became this thing of like, why couldn't you tell me you were doing the same project? Like, I was telling you all of my insider information about what we were doing, and then you won it. And so betrayal can look so, there's so many layers to it, but really it's about secrecy, hiding the like the parts of you, the intimate parts of you or the things that you want, or all of those things, they become these like hidden secrets that people just bury inside of them. And most partners are like, why couldn't you feel safe enough to talk to me about this? Like, why couldn't you, explore this? And there's so many reasons why people hide them. But betrayals, I generally think about it as like when there are people not consenting to what happened and secrecy. Now, people get struggle, like kind of have struggles between like what's secrecy and what's privacy. Like, what do I get to have that's private? And that is a really fun line to try to figure out with people because I also don't get to decide that.
Right.
But intentionally withholding something feels like a secret.
Yes. I like if you like type in Google, definition of betrayal, the Oxford definition will be to reveal. And
Mm,
so when you're saying that this is based in secrecy, it's basically the secret has now been revealed. And that has taken the
yes,
foundation of our truth, that of what I thought was our truth together. Um,
that's
what
wild.
are, yeah, like what are some examples of those reasons that someone might not tell someone when, because I think we hear in our offices, why didn't you feel safe enough to tell me? And that could be almost anything.
Yeah.
But what are some things that people might be experiencing where it's, I didn't feel like I couldn't tell you?
Well, because I work with like such a far of the spectrum of betrayal, like the people that are reaching out to me have really out of control behaviors where they are like completely just disconnected from themselves and constantly objectifying, constantly in their head, fantasizing all the time. And their partners are like, where are you? Like, it feels like you're not even present with me. Some of the reasons, this is a deep rabbit hole we could go in, but honestly, there is a shame around sexuality. Some religious trauma is, I mean, one of the main referrals that I get is people who have religious trauma or spiritual trauma that they have felt um, that like sex is bad and wrong and so that they had to hide it and they had to be pure and this kind of purity culture has caused a lot of reasons why like if I show any impurities then I will there's something wrong with me and my partner therefore will not want to like connect with me. And one of the other main ones, this comes from Dr. Ken Adams' work, is around enmeshment. I work with a lot of people who have really significant enmeshed family systems. And so secrecy is the only way to like have some autonomy in their life. And so that autonomy that they have that's deeply off to the side, they can't even bring into their marriage. They have to keep it secret.
It's the way they protect their sense of self.
Exactly. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Because even as you're talking about the religious trauma, I'm imagining that that's also a way to protect my sense of self in this community. I'm protecting my sense of self in my family unit. They can't find this out. If anyone found this out, I could be excommunicated from my one sense of belonging, safety, or security.
Yes. And generally, they find partners who really just want to be safe people for them. They want to be safe and they like just can't do it. And so that's why the partner generally is like, why couldn't you even tell me? Like, because they generally, their partners are so thoughtful and giving and caring and like will like overly take care of them. So it replicates the family system. That's when I said at the beginning that we have generations of work that we're dealing with because when people are sitting in front of me, I know that it's not just what they bring in, it's everything that they've been carrying for the however long that these secrets have been going on in their system.
Right, because it's that caring partner can be conflated with, no, you're trying to get to know me so much that then it feels like you're going to want to influence me in some way that's going to impede on my autonomy.
Yes. It feels like an like they feel engulfed by people. They feel so overwhelmed by people.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and that secrecy is the only way I get to explore myself. And I get to do
Yes.
that in my own way, in private, against my own rules, my
Yes.
own moral code, my own value system, whatever that might be for that person. But that's like their way of almost differentiating from the systems they know so well.
Hmm. Hmm. This
Oh,
is a little bit of a tangent and isn't about this type of work specifically, but it's in like the addiction world or even just like the sense of self, like protecting of self. I had a client one time who had been sober for like 3 or 4 years and was doing really good work and healing. And she came in one day and she's like, Heather, I just like want to let my dog like poop in the neighbor's yard and just like kind of do something naughty. It's like she just needed to get away with something. She wanted to like do something that was just a little bit naughty. And I'm like, this is really fascinating because it was this part of her that was rebellious and she still wanted to be rebellious, but being rebellious could cause harm. And so she was trying to find a way to just be a little bit rebellious.
yeah. And okay, so in thinking about that, what might be a way that someone like your client or someone who's like wants to be rebellious can maybe explore that without causing the harm?
I feel like that's why rage rooms exist now. Have you heard of those? Like
Yeah.
those rage rooms where you can like go and break a bunch of stuff. I think that that's why those exist.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I mean, listen, also great business model because, like, they're charging. I'm like, whoever made this as a business, good job.
So
Um,
smart.
it's so smart, and yeah, because it's that this is a secure place that you get to break all the rules
Hmm.
along with a bunch of things.
Yes. Well, I even think about so for that person, like, or people with like similar in that way, they like also don't feel like they have a voice. So I'll like ask them, like, when's the last time you just like screamed at the top of their lung at the top of your lungs? And they're like, I don't think I've ever done that. Oh, like even like using the full capacity of people's voice is really hard for them. So I think about just like how do you like what is it that you're holding back? And then how do we do the opposite of that in a safe way?
Mm. Yeah. How do you get to express yourself fully in some
Hmm.
capacity so
Hmm.
that the rebellious part doesn't feel like it's taking over in the way that it's like I have to shove that down, but the
Yeah.
more that I try and shove that down, the more that it wants to be bigger and take over, and it feels like
Yeah.
my shadow is following me, but more like, oh, I can see that my shadow is there and I can like work with it
Hmm.
rather than work against it.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
Well, and even like with the dog example, like, is that really just like anger? Like, is it really rebellion or is this anger and you do need to go to that rage room or you do need to like let yourself be mad at some, like, whatever. We can, sometimes it is actually a pretty simple explanation and it isn't always about like, okay, we need to think about what are all the ways that we can let this rebellious part. It's like, no, just like do something simple to let it out a little bit and see what that does.
Yeah, totally.
We overcomplicate things all the time.
Therapy world does like to do that. Yeah. Yeah, that sometimes it really is like this simple strategies of like, well, what is it that you want to go and do right now? Like, what's the
Mhm.
impulsive part of you trying to do?
Yes. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
For sure. Yeah. So, couple comes in,
Hmm.
step one, they're like, our foundation's been rocked. Let's say infidelity or an affair has
Yep.
occurred and one partner found out and the other one is like, yeah, I got caught.
Hmm.
Um, and they're coming to you.
Yep.
What's your first step?
My first step would be evaluating their readiness for a change. Like how do we assess for a change? And like, are they like looking to make changes, or are they looking to make this just like not be a problem anymore? Because if you don't want it to just not be a problem anymore, we're just kind of like pushing it to the side and really, like, if this is a person that's coming in saying, I just need you to forgive me, they are looking to put a band-aid on a bullet hole, right? Like that is just like, I just need you to forgive me. I just need to move on. We need to move forward. And sometimes both people are in that spot. Like, let's just move forward. Let's just get going with this. And I will let them know, like, you can do that. You can just move forward. But you also, like, then have to stop, like, you have to stop. Like, if you want to put everything in the past, then you need to stop talking about it. And that's just not going to happen. Because I won't tell either of you that that's a good idea to just stop talking about something, because it feels like I'm taking away your agency.
Hmm. Right, right. And also, if you just wanted to stop talking about it, would you be here?
Correct. So you're here,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
we want to talk about it. And so that really tells me that like we have some accountability that needs to still happen, which tells me also that there's more secrets in there, because generally when one thing is there, it is only a fraction of the truth. And in the betrayal world, we call this like the when a trauma happens like this, like the betrayal happens, they call it D-Day, because it's just like everything blows up. But then what happens after that is they give little pieces of information, because the person who did the betraying says, I don't want to hurt them anymore, which, to go back to your earlier point, is self protection.
Mm.
They say it's about their partner, but it's really, I don't want them to hear more because they're going to get more mad at me. They don't want the person to be more mad at them. So they give them little pieces, and we call that like trickle truths, like the trickling out of information. That trickling of information is the most harmful part of the process, actually. Because when the betrayal happens, it's awful. Like it feels when it's unveiled or uncovered, I should say, when they're found out, it is awful. But once you add little pieces, what starts to happen for the person who is hearing the information, they're trying to put together a story. And their story can't be linear because they don't have a linear picture of the story. And so they have all these fragments of the truth, and they're trying to put it together. And what the mind does is, all generally a lot of the people think worst case scenario, that there's more, it's worse, it's bad, it's all of these other things, because when they're getting little pieces of information, they don't know the whole story, because the other person holds all the power with that, because information is power. They hold all of the secrets, and they hold all of that truth. So I'm assessing really early on is, do we have the potential of more secrets coming out? And if so, then I need to like do some triage to help them be able to not jump into gathering all the information. So that is where I would ask the couple to stop asking questions, and us to create a plan for like the truth to come out, or a plan for, in the betrayal world, we call it a disclosure. So a disclosure to disclose all of the details of it, which is a really painful and awful process. But if you're wanting to work on your relationship, a lot of people would say it's important to know what is back there.
Mm. Right, right. Because we're not trying to make it 50-50 like how we mentioned before, but we are trying to like not make it so that there's just such extreme power imbalance that
Right.
it feels like there's then the other person is left feeling really powerless in the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're doing that triage, what are you assessing for? It sounds like you're assessing for like you're saying readiness. Is it readiness for how we talk about it? Readiness for what kind of emotional regulation or dysregulation might be
Mhm.
occurring in the truth revelation disclosures?
Yep. Yes. Yes, all of that. I think there's also like, what is it that we're working with? So if this is someone who comes in with a one-time betrayal, I'm wanting to assess like, is this really a one-time betrayal, or how, like, I'm not going to find all that out in the first session. So I'm just putting that on like my list of like, what are we looking at? If this is an addiction or a compulsive behavior, there is probably a lot more going on here. Or is this like a form of a personality disorder where like it's much more egregious and they are doing things that are really like boundaryless and they they just don't believe in consent at all. Like, is that part of it? Because we have a whole spectrum of like sexual betrayals that people can come in with. And I don't always know what I'm working with. So my first job is to slow the process down because everyone is like, let's get this going, let's move. I want to slow it down, assess for what's going on. And so that might mean that I ask the person who did the betraying to do a sexual assessment. And if there's any like offending behaviors, I obviously would send that to a very skilled person because people come in saying like I've done all of these things. You're like, whoa, we need to put that in a different box. But if this is a one-time betrayal, I will work with the couple for a little bit to slow things down. But what happens, how I would know I don't want to keep doing couples therapy is if I'm constantly focusing on one person.
Mm,
If I have that like therapeutic intuition to be like, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, that is never going to feel good for the partner to watch me do that work.
hmm
And so that's when I would say, okay, this is not going to work anymore for us to do this. Like you each need to like continue on your own individual work. Let's meet back in about 6 weeks. I would give some time for him or her to do their work around whatever it is that's showing up. Because generally what I'm seeing that would cause this to um not go forward be would be like the weaponization of shame. So like what you were talking about with Terry Real, like the whole like shame and boundaryless and like that kind of caretaking or the like the performer, the guy that's like doing everything and like all-star husband, all-star with everything, takes care of everything, but yet still like you kind of feel like something's off, like that person still is weaponizing shame because they're not actually leaning into the relationship. They're just over functioning to make us not look at the big scary pile in the corner. And so I would also slow therapy down at that point.
Right. The fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses that are
Absolutely.
going to like
Yeah.
really be prominent in in how they're showing up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that overly like I got to be now the best person that you need me to be. I'm gonna bring you flowers every day. I'm gonna be
Uh-huh.
like, the all-star person that you need me to be. But that one, it doesn't last. And then the other part is that it sounds like it almost distorts reality almost further because now what I'm seeing is you trying to make up all of this, but there's still so much hurt and none of this is making up for that hurt, but also where was this person before? Where have you been? So
Yeah,
I know you can do it now, but I haven't been seeing that all along. And more so, now I'm feeling betrayed by you. So it can almost feel like a bit even more of a shaky ground because then it's like, who are you?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's like, yes, who are you? And on top of that, like, okay, like, oh, or the like the other part that I was just thinking about as you were talking is like they've always done that. They've always been the all-star. And then it's like, oh, you've been doing all these things all along because you didn't want me to see what was happening. And
Mm,
so, yeah, I never had any, like, I didn't ever suspect this until the person called to tell me that my wife has been dating your husband for the last year, been sleeping with your, whatever it is. And you find
right.
out that way and you're like, oh my God, I thought I had this perfect life. Because most of my clients believe they had a perfect life.
Oh, yeah. And that it this will absolutely shake every type of reality or every story that
Yeah.
they've been writing so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like that when you're kind of assessing, you're recommending individual work. I'm imagining you're also recommending individual work kind of regardless
I
too. Would you
am because
say
the
like you're
partner,
kind of
it's not that the partner needs to do therapy to like figure out what happened for them. It's that they have to learn how to trust themselves again. Because as
mm,
soon as betrayal happens, most of the people I work with feel like their sense of self is shattered, that everything that they thought was real is gone. And what starts to happen is they start to try to figure out how, like I was talking about those trickle truths and the like the pieces, they're getting all those pieces, but then they also have the overlay of their life. and where they were on Christmas Day when they remembered that this thing was happening. It's like, oh, you were on your phone all the time. Oh, were you talking to her or were you talking to him when we were all sitting there for Christmas? Like, that's what was happening. Like, all of a sudden, stories like start to line up, and it's like, oh, why didn't I ask to see your phone? Why didn't I ask that? I didn't want to be the nagging partner. I didn't want to be the husband that asked for that, or I didn't want to be the person that did that. So, they start to really unravel in that way because they start doing what we call safety seeking behaviors. Safety seeking behaviors being like, I'm looking for safety in any way I can. And I might do things that I don't ever imagine that I would do, like looking through your phone, looking through a drawer, like all of those things that are just like, it feels invasive. And it's like, I don't even know why I'm doing this, but it like drives safety and it makes you feel like you're safe. So, that partner needs to do some work on like reclaiming their sense of knowing is how I describe it, like getting back to their own intuition and trusting themselves again because that feels so rattled.
Oh yeah, sure. Sure, yeah, that the safety seeking is like I have this inkling in the back of my head and that I need to find out if
Yeah.
this inkling is true or not. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like for the partner who is betraying, that for them it's like deepening, like understanding their secrets, understanding where this is all coming from, understanding how like their points of shame and what maybe has led to some of these patterns, behaviors, sense of self and secrecy. And then for the other person, it's how do I reclaim my sense of knowing? How do I reclaim this in a way that feels good to me, that doesn't feel like that I'm obsessing over what the other person's doing to reclaim that sense of safety.
Yep.
Okay.
Right on.
Okay.
You, you summarize that so well. Yes. And I think the other part of this that I have only one rule. I mean, I have a few, like, obviously ethics for like my staff and team and like all of that. But like, one of the things I tell everyone you're never allowed to ask a couple is, why are you staying or why aren't you going? I never ask them why. I never ask them why they are wanting to work on the relationship or not. That is just such an unhelpful question in this process. So even if, as you're talking about the person who's working on reclaiming and all of that, there are many points where they want to leave the relationship. There's many points where that they can't imagine ever leaving, but we're not asking them, why are they doing this? Why are they not? What do they want to do? That is never part of the discussion in therapy. Like, that's just not a question we ask because everyone outside of our office is asking them that. Everybody in their life that knows about this is wondering, are you staying with Bobby? Are you doing this? What are you up to? Are you going to do this? Have you forgiven him? And those just are exhausting for people who've been betrayed to have to navigate. So we, as like all of the clinicians, I have them, they firmly understand that, and that's just not something we will do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes and this is kind of the question, it's like I guess kind of along that question, the question of like what is it that's keeping you here, because I
Uh,
feel like that tells a story of like what is it that's here in your relationship that that's like you're still attached to, like you're still in some way, like this betrayal might be a fracture, but there's an attachment here that, in some way. So
mhm.
would you say, is that another way of maybe not asking why are you staying or why are you leaving, but almost like what is it that's here in your relationship that you feel like you like have that connection still?
Yeah, I don't know if I would even ask that question. I don't think it's a bad question. I just like it's not like a style that I have because what I watch people do is look for excuses
Yeah,
and look for reasons. And I want them to feel so empowered in making their decision. Like, I want them to feel truly empowered when they're ready, because they're telling me all those things that you're saying. Like, they're saying all of those things all of the time anyway. So, me reinforcing it isn't going to be helpful. So I
right.
really take a back seat to all of that and really help them like get to know themselves because most of my clients coming in, they will be like, Heather, what do you think about this? Heather, what do you think about this? Heather, what
Yeah.
about this? Like, they're asking me, like they're trying to borrow my nervous system. And they do
Yeah.
borrow my nervous system. That's part of the work, but they're also trying to borrow my like intuition. And it's like, oh no, we need your intuition to take over.
Right, right. It's like it's not just like a co-regulation at that point in your nervous
Yeah.
system. It's like, hey, you're the expert. What have you seen? What do you know?
Yes.
What you have the answers, right? When I if I feel like I really don't know, my world's been rocked, I'm looking for answers in any way I can get them.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
told it's so relatable to like want to have all the answers. And I'm a smart person, so I can give you a lot of answers, but like that doesn't actually help the person live their life and enjoy their life. So I try to stay out of the thing of like, what are you doing? What are you going to do? I think about like, what are you going to do for you today? What are you going to do to take care of you today? Because so much of the healing that happens around, I would say any type of healing, but since we're talking about betrayal, it happens here and now. It doesn't happen by relitigating the past or going through everything. You need the answers with all of that. But the true healing comes in when they are being able to take care of themselves, think about what they're needing, all of those pieces that are just kind of coming in alignment um, after like such disruption in their life.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
So they're coming in, people are like, Heather, give me the answers, give me the playbook, like please. What are some, okay, so and it sounds like you're recommending like please do your individual work, like really deep dive into that. And then is this because I'm imagining it's like this is the crisis phase. Like they're in the wake of it. And wondering when you're in the crisis phase in sessions, what that might look like and how long. I mean, I know that for everyone, crisis is going to be, it depends on the people and the situations and everything, but like kind of wondering how that progresses through, like from crisis to stabilization in betrayal work.
Yeah, I would love to say that it happens a certain way. It does not, because some of the best types of stabilization are when people like separate and like aren't in front of each other every day. So some people will do like full-on separations where they are like leaving their homes and taking spaces or aren't living together so that they can do that or having different things. Like those can be helpful. Sometimes those are harder. Like there are so many ways that those get weaponized. Honestly, the first like stabilization is making sure you have the right people that are helping this crew. Because so often people have been in therapy for years, individual therapy, and they come to me for couples therapy. They're like, we're ready to do this work. And then I find out they haven't done anything on the work for themselves. So first it's like, do we have the right people in place here? And that stabilization really comes in when like, can we get you guys to like not talk about this every minute of the day? How do we get you to have some space for your nervous system to not be on such high alert and be in that flight, fight, or freeze response? Um, because one of the things I notice about people who do the betraying work, one of their other trauma responses is fibbing. I don't know if you saw that that has been added recently, but it's like, oh, fibbing is also a defense system in a trauma response of like, I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm just going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to get that person to get that in some regulation and not just jumping to giving false pieces of information. Um, so that stabilization honestly could take anywhere from 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
And I wish it could happen sooner. And there, in some ways, they can. Um, but I try not to tell people that it's going to be a couple of sessions. And if it happens sooner, great. I am all for that. But generally, it's about 6 months to 12 months because that's how long it can take sometimes for that person to understand their betraying behavior and like the roots of it and understanding themselves a little bit better. But most of all, it's can you get out of the secrecy and actually start living in the commitments that you make?
Mm. Oh, I love that. Get out of the secrecy and start living in the commitments that you make.
Because that's ultimately why they're there. They made a commitment, whatever the type of relationship is, and the commitments were not kept.
Right. What do you think of the statistic that two-thirds of marriages survive affairs? Because it seems like that when people look at marriages and they're like, there's a 50% divorce rate, ish, right? I mean, that's a kind of, it's evolved, but ish, right? But then the same that two-thirds of marriages survive. Because what do you think it is that people heal in like the betrayal part? Like, there's this foundation that gets shattered. It sounds like they're doing a lot of work, and like when you look at people and how they evolve, like what gets them to that stabilization? What gets them to the other side?
Um, Honestly, there is a moment when the person who did the betraying, they start to do things that are just like unbelievably amazing. Like they just start getting so honest and accountable. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, that is like the sexiest moment. Like that is the most exciting part for them because they start doing these things that are just like, oh my goodness, like I didn't know that like they would be as thoughtful or connecting and it's truly like it is it's hard to explain because it's a felt sense.
Yeah.
It's similar to like group therapy. There is magic that happens in group therapy that I just like I can't even describe what like cohesion looks like when the group is functioning and doing well. The same thing happens with couples. Like all of a sudden, when the person who did the betraying starts really getting accountable, doesn't say things like, is this going to be held over my head for the rest of my life? And it's like that you did the betraying. It might be part of the relationship for the rest of time, but it's going to look different if you start doing different.
Mm-hmm.
But if
Yeah.
you have this thing of like, oh, it's always going to, like, you're still not fully living in that space of like, you did this thing that totally wrecked the relationship.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I have clients that will come in saying that, but there's a couple I'm working with currently that, like, instead of going there, he goes into like, I need to think about this. I need to think about how I showed up that way. I need to think about this a little bit more and is more reflective and comes back less defended. Like,
Mm.
what a beautiful thing to come back less defended.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
two-thirds of relationship, that's a really good question. I don't know what the statistics are. I think it's so hard. Like I sometimes couples leave and they are doing really well when they leave, but I don't know what happens to them later on. That's one of the things about being a therapist. I don't get to know what happens later.
I know, which is the hard part of our job.
I know. I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like it sounds like that when one person moves from the defensive pieces or the defensive parts of them start to feel maybe more regulated, that then they're able to be more reflective. And it sounds like that is a huge part of the practice. When you're talking about slowing it down, that's what I'm imagining too, is that like when you're saying we're going to really slow this down because defensiveness wants to react and being more reflective and thoughtful is going to be a slower process. I'm
Yes,
imagining that that's part of your work and
absolutely.
your sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like what you're describing right there is empathy.
Mm, yeah.
And that's something that is lacking in a lot of this. And um, yeah, I have lots of thoughts about that, but that might be that might be another podcast.
Yeah, that could totally be an episode in itself, but like give us like a trailer because I'm imagining that you're the one holding the empathy for both parties here.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
part of like your almost like job as like the leader in the room.
Well, I think I think the reason why I'm kind of laughing is like there's this whole like this kind of idea of like low effort behavior that's out there, and
Hmm.
low effort behavior lacks empathy.
Mm. Low effort behavior lacks empathy.
Right? Like if I am in a like if I'm in a relationship or the relationship I'm in, I have a ton of empathy. I show up for those people. But if I
Mhm.
have low effort behavior or low effort in general, I'm not actually in empathy or in connection. I'm expecting people to take care of me.
Yes, yes. Okay, so because I work with a lot of like the dating space too, and it'll be why is it that we can text for forever, but they won't make a plan? And I'm like, because a false level of intimacy. Like
Right.
it's intimacy falsified. They're saying all the right things. It's easy to send a text message. It's easy to swipe.
Yep.
It is so easy. It's so low effort. But
Yes.
making a plan, that takes effort.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is, you're exactly right. False intimacy. And I think that's probably even better word than like low empathy, but it is low empathy as well because it's not actually leaning into relationship, leaning into intimacy. And that's where like I see a lot of the people that I've worked with, they have a ton of like dating app behavior while still in relationship because they can have that intimacy without doing it with their partner. And they'll be texting hundreds of people.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of time and effort, but like it's still low effort behavior because it's not actually leaning in to the relationship.
Right. Right. This is where dating app the habits like ruin real relationships. Like it
Uh-huh.
just, yeah. Yeah, because it trains you to like this is a habit. It trains you to be this way in
Right.
some regard, that this is how
Yeah,
you connect, this is how you do things, and this is just you can do it with the masses, but to do it with one person or to do it with just like the people in your circle, that can
uh-huh.
feel like, oh my gosh, that's so much effort or that's so much energy, that's so much vulnerability. They might see something inside of me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
We could talk for days about the gamification of dating apps.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well, especially, I mean, now that, gosh, like this is the fun part about these conversations because you can really riff on different topics.
Uh-huh.
Like, because I'm imagining too with betrayal work, it's like, I mean, apps and social media and everything, and how, Facebook has basically was the original point to then say, hey, yeah, you can reawaken this long lost high school lover relationship that you once had after you've been married for 25 years, and look, you have access to them now. Before it was like, I have no idea what happened to Johnny back then,
Yeah.
so
Uh-huh.
yeah, but that it's like it kind of trains us. And when it trains us for the masses, it trains us for the quantity and not the quality. Then like the betraying is kind of like, well, all the secrets that I have, I don't have to share that with all in one person. I can just keep it going. I can just share whatever I want on this date and then go on a date with the next person the next day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's so true. And what I hear from a lot, and when you asked, I'm like kind of going backwards a second here, but a lot of people are so sick of being themselves that they get to reinvent themselves in new ways. That they're so sick
Mhm.
of being whatever it is that they don't like about themselves, whatever their negative beliefs are about themselves or trauma, they get to pretend to be an entirely different person for a second. And that can feel really exciting.
It makes them feel alive, which we know that that is part of the affair.
Yes, that dopamine system.
The dopamine system, it's that vernacular. It's like
Mhm.
everyone says, I don't know why I did what I did, but it made me feel alive. Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That rebellious part, like you were talking about with the leash.
Yes, yes.
It's like, yeah,
It
is it
all
that
keeps coming
rebellious
back
part?
together.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. For
Mm.
sure. Oh my goodness. Okay. So if you were to give like straight advice for people who have been through betrayals,
Mhm.
what would be like, hey, if you've been through a betrayal, this is like the loose, I don't want to say like four-step process, but
Mhm.
like this is like the
Yeah.
loose framework that I would recommend for people to start to do.
Um, I would recommend, I guess it's different for each person, but like if this is a couple that's coming to me saying, hey, we want help on this, make sure you have the right therapists in place or the people in place and that you're connected with them and you feel like you trust them because trusting your therapist to be able to fully share, you don't want to just like your therapist because that's not helpful. Because I mean, I don't even know if half of my clients like me, but they trust me and they know I'm helpful. And they know I'm a safe person to do this work with. So you want that feeling. You don't want to just like your therapist and you don't want to just like take care of that person. The second thing is you can't keep the secret alone. You have to find someone that you love and trust in your life to be able to talk to because so often the secrecy just becomes more and more difficult. And I'm not saying go tell everybody and that not everyone needs to know, but like actually having a trusted voice that can help you through this process and the safe person. So connection is honestly like the number one thing I would tell you to have is finding people to connect with. Um, I would also say that like getting honest with yourself and like really starting to like look in the mirror and not just avoiding looking in the mirror is another super helpful part of the process. And there's so many great resources out there. There are tons of podcasts and free webinars and support groups and different things for people who've been through betrayal. It is actually a very large community and people don't know that. I held a movie night about a year ago. This Maddie Corman did a one-person show. It's called why can't I think of it? It'll come to me in a second. Um, but she put on this like performance of like what it's like to go through betrayal. I held a showing of it, and we had like 15 people show up, and the one thing that everybody said is, I can't believe there's other people here. Because so often people feel like no one else is going through this and it's just them. And so it's very isolating. So I guess all of my resources are about connection because you aren't alone. Like there are, I mean, I have a business that is specifically around betrayal therapy, like that. And we have a pretty long wait list of people trying to get in to see us. And unfortunately, that's true. I tell all my clients, I hate that this is my specialty. I hate that this is my job. I'm grateful that I get to help you, though, because it is needed.
Yes, yes. I remember back when I worked in addiction, like kind of to that point, I don't know why someone asked me this question, but they were like, "Oh, you work in addiction, so you like drugs?" And I was like, No." And
Mhm.
and someone else at goes, "Yeah, you do. It's your business." Like I was like, "Oh, well, when you say it that way."
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
was like, yes, unfortunately, it's my business. I wouldn't, I don't want it to be. However, we are a
Exactly.
resource. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we do
hmm
what we're good at.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Do you have podcasts that you recommend, like typically to people?
I don't listen. So because I do this work all the time, I like cannot have other people's voices in my head. I think I told you that when we first met. I'm like, I have not. So I listen to very different types of podcasts. So I don't have, I do like Seeking Integrity. They do some amazing work. They are a treatment center. They put on a ton of free resources. Michelle Mays does some amazing work in the betrayal work as well. I believe she has a podcast. And then I kind of mentioned Dr. Ken Adams, his work on enmeshment. I highly recommend for people who see this generationally in their family system. He has some amazing work out there that is so clear and helps people really understand how this generational pattern really harms future generations.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other final words, thoughts, anything you want to give to people?
Um, I think that it's just I love that people tune into podcasts like this and listen to like ways to keep healing, ways to think about doing this work. It's so inspiring to know that people get excited about these kinds of conversations. So, um, I have like a ton of gratitude and I feel connected to like anybody that would be listening to this. It's just so amazing. I love it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anytime that I hear someone say like, "Oh yeah, listen to your podcast," I'm like, "What? Really? That's cool." Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah. I'm very grateful to have you on today. This
Thank
is
you.
so fun. I'm so glad that we're connected.
Yeah.
And where can people find you?
So uplifted-therapy.com, and then I am also on Instagram at Heather Heide. There's some cool stuff that we're doing around shame, so I think I'll probably have my business partner and I come on again and soon here to talk about our shame project that we're working on. So stay tuned with that. That's called Unmasking Shame, and that will be out in the next, I think, 6 weeks.
That's so exciting. Yeah, would love to have you back on when you're ready to if you want to launch it and,
Oh, yeah.
and present it to the world. I'm excited for that too.
Thank you. This has been great. I appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, you're welcome back anytime. And thank you again for coming on. So until next time, everyone, drink Larry's coffee. Link is down below if you want to stay caffeinated and stay connected.